Hello, and welcome to episode 209 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today is our third episode of interviews for Agatha Nominees for the 2021 Malice Domestic Awards. Today we have a visit with Judy L. Murray and Jan Brogan, both nominees, so enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
We would like to welcome Judy L. Murray to the program. She is the Agatha nominee for the Best First Novel for Murder in the Master. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you both, Anne and Tracy. I'm delighted to be here, and I appreciate your having interest in my novel.
We are so excited because our little neck of the woods is in your book. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
It certainly is. And in fact, the murder mystery takes place in a little village on the Chesapeake Bay, at the top of the bay in Maryland. It is, frankly, I think very much a part of the book. It's a character in itself. And if anyone has been to the Chesapeake, they know it can be quite beautiful. That is very interesting. I actually touch on through my characters and descriptions. I talk about the boating life, the seafood, the fact that these villages go back hundreds of years, and that there are still people on this bay that make a living, like the crabbers and those type of fishermen that make a living like they did 100 years ago. So as a result, these Chesapeake villages are going through a bit of I'll call it a transformation, because you have people that are discovering the bay even more so, and the water, and being accessible to the water. And there's a little bit of a conflict there, because you have the locals that have been there 100 years, and they have to go through a bit of adjustment as these new people move in. So that's even part of the storyline.
Is it a series? Is there a protagonist?
The protagonist, her name is Helen Morrisey. The name Helen comes because my mother's name was Helen. And she always believed that I should be a full-time writer. But this being my debut novel, this is one of those dreams you want to accomplish and you want to start. But of course, practicality in life always gets in the way, right? Or it can. So yes, my protagonist is Helen Morrisey, and she is a very smart woman. She's in her 50s. I wanted to be someone who's not a youngster, and I wanted to be someone who's smart and caring. And that is a person that she has to go to work every day. She didn't inherit a B&B or something along that line. She has to go to work. She has to make a living. She's a recent widow. Her husband died about 3 years ago, and that actually becomes a part of this storyline. And it also is a woman who cares a lot about the people around her. So what happens is, literally in the first paragraph, she is running a public open house for a builder. She walks into the master bedroom, and there she finds him naked and dead in the master bedroom on the bed. She's immediately concerned for a lot of reasons, one of which is because she has a very close friend back from childhood who was having an affair with him. That person, of course, becomes a person that's considered a likely suspect, and Helen gets involved in helping her friend prove her own innocence. And so, interestingly enough, Helen, you'll find out, has huge interest in murder mysteries. Her bookcases in her house are loaded with mystery stories. And she decides, in order to figure out who's responsible for this murder, she decides she's going to call together the women on her bookshelf that she feels each bring something unique to figuring out who's responsible. So what she does is she mentally creates this detection club much like Dorothy L. Sayers and Agatha Christie had back in the 30s. So she pulls together Jane Marple, Agatha Raisin, Nora Charles, Jessica Fletcher, and of course, Nancy Drew. So those primarily 5 women, they help feed her the ideas and thought processes that help her work herself through the clues of what has happened and why this happened. It's been very interesting, actually, because that was not part of the original storyline. I knew right from the beginning that it would be centered around what happened tied into a real estate crime. As I started thinking about this, I developed the idea of the detection club and introducing these characters that she consults. So they are her sleuths, they are her squad, I guess is a good way of putting it. She calls on them to help her out in figuring out this mystery and how this happened. What's interesting about this is that my readership, I cannot tell you how many of my reviews referred to that and loved it. They just embraced the concept. So
Well, you sold me as soon as you said
Definitely.
the people in that club. Sign me up.
Sign me up. I know you two would fit in perfectly.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a great idea to focus a book on. That is amazing.
And we hear that so often that these books and the people within them kind of write their own story. These ideas just spawn. And I just think that is so cool.
Thank you very, very much. It was one of those ideas that, like I said, sort of evolved as I'm mid manuscript. You know how this light bulb goes off as it can with as a writer. I thought, well, let's see how it goes. And it just really added a whole new element. We have all these different women injecting their own skill sets, I'll call it that, and their personalities into the storyline.
I can't wait to read.
Terrific. That's great. That
Sounds exciting.
It is.
Is your protagonist based on a real person?
I probably would say it's a combination of people, which is probably the case in a lot of time situations. But I have spent 35, 40 years in real estate. I was a salesperson, a sales manager, a coach, a trainer. I was in charge of marketing programs. I really was in this business in every avenue you can think of. And by doing that, you become very immersed, obviously, in how this business really works. And what's interesting about this, too, is a lot of people don't realize it, but real estate was probably one of the first industries where women had the opportunity to break that glass ceiling as far as income was concerned and as far as their roles and their leadership opportunities, because you're an independent person and within a broker. So it's that kind of opportunity for women, which makes it, I think, interesting if they're hard workers, if they're smart. So, in that respect, I think real estate brings a lot to this table. And of course, on the flip side, with everything you see on television, that kind of thing, HGTV is not real. Probably one of my major motivating factors in writing this story. And it is a series, by the way. I didn't answer your question. It's the first in a series. But one of my major motivators is people are very interested in real estate. They find it fascinating. Obviously, it touches everyone's personal life in very significant ways, but they really don't know much about how it really works. And I wanted to introduce that also in the storyline and give people more of a sense of what day-to-day could be about. So it makes it fun and it makes it interesting. And, it's one of those backgrounds, I think, that adds a lot to the story.
Let's talk about why we're here.
Okay.
The Agatha Award. Have you ever been to Malice?
I have. I've been twice. I went years ago, probably about 7 years ago, as I was starting to really, say I wanted to fit in the time to start getting this going, this career of mine in writing. I had gone then, and then I went, I guess it was 2019, and I think you were there also.
Yes, we were.
Yeah, you said something in one of your podcasts that I heard, and I was there. I had just signed on with a literary agent, which is Blue Ridge Literary Agency, Dawn Dowdle. I don't know if you don't know Dawn. She specializes in mysteries and cozies and thrillers, that type of thing. Anyway, and so I was there for that conference. It was terrific. It's a great conference. The people are just so much fun to meet, and you learn a whole lot. So yes, it's enjoyable. And I'm very excited, obviously, this Agatha nomination, thrilled. how could I not be? And obviously up against a lot of very, very strong writers. So I'm thrilled to be a part of that group. I really am.
We will definitely be pulling for you because you're a hometown girl.
I am. I certainly am. And I'm hoping it will introduce people from around the world and our country, obviously, that don't know the Chesapeake to discovery.
Well, I love your little, the Chesapeake isn't always cozy. I love that.
Yes, that's great.
So glad.
Speaking of your website,
Yes.
would you like to tell our listeners what that is?
Of course. Easily is judylmurraymysteries.com. So they can find me easily there. And obviously they can find me on Facebook and Twitter and all those places. So,
And she's very active there.
Yes.
You might want to give her a follow.
Good. Thank you so much. That's really terrific. And it's been exciting, and I'll keep my fingers crossed for the Agatha Award. But I'll mention too that the second book will be coming out in early September of this year. And that one is going to be called Killer in the Kitchen. So all of it is always tied in with the fact that Helen is working, and she, of course, gets pulled into different situations, which I don't need to tell you, real estate agents, they know an awful lot about people's personal lives. Let's put it that way.
Well, I tell you what, Judy, when that second book comes out, because you're nice and close, maybe we can do an in-person interview and have you back on.
That would be so much fun. And I'd be happy to meet you wherever you need to meet. That would be quite a treat. It really was. Thank you all. Thank you both, and your partner, Kathy, because it really is a treat to be and an honor to be on this show.
And you'll meet all three of us at Malice.
I can't wait. Why don't I do this? I will make sure that I bring some extra copies along for you. Okay?
Wonderful.
Sounds good.
Judy, we thank you for talking with us.
Appreciate you being here tonight.
You enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We would like to welcome to the program Jan Brogan. She is nominated for an Agatha for nonfiction category for The Combat Zone, Murder, Race, and Boston's Struggle for Justice. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
What gave you the inspiration to write this book?
I've written 4 murder mysteries. When I finished my last one, it was probably 2007 because it came out in 2008. It was a series, and I wanted to do something new. I had learned to successfully make up crime and make it suspenseful. And I thought to myself, there's so much crime in the world anyway. And what I really was looking for, a story that, not that I could tell, but that needed to be told. I kept saying that enough times and at enough cocktail parties that someone in my town hooked me up with Danny Popolo, who is the son of the victim of this terrible murder. And even then I debated, because I looked at it first, he was killed, got justice. And then it wasn't until I looked at the trials and then also learned about the significance of the trial on Massachusetts justice, and also eventually going up to the Supreme Court, national justice, that I thought, well, this is definitely a story that needs to be told. That's how I got involved in this. And that was probably 10 years ago.
Do you feel that if you were going to write this as a fiction story, it would be appropriate to come out around this time with all the stuff that's going on in the world? Because we're in Maryland and we were here during the Freddie Gray trial. So we are very familiar with injustice. So did you feel the timing was right for this book?
When I started, of course, none of this was happening. And this sort of evolved along the way as I learned more and more. It is obviously applicable because there's a lot of injustice in the criminal justice system. And this is one of the cases that really put a stop in Massachusetts from excluding Blacks on juries, which was extremely common practice all through the country. I learned this along the way. It wasn't a factor in me starting the case, but when I first started, it was this victim did not get justice. And then I realized he did not get justice, but it was because a lot of Black victims had not gotten justice. There were intervals when I gave up this project and I had thought about fictionalizing it. I just couldn't, because I was so emotionally involved in the truth at that point that I did not have the freedom to veer from it like you need to when you write fiction. But there is actually a fictional book out about the same murder, and it's called Hush Hush by Gabriel Vergian. His book I'd say it's inspired by this case because it takes the facts and alters them radically. But that's what fiction does. And that's why